Hello and welcome to the third lesson in writing reports. My name's Peter Travis from Flojo, and in this lesson we'll look at how to write in a formal style through a careful choice of some common words and expressions. There'll be some short exercises throughout this lesson and you'll be asked to pause the video while you think of the answers. If you've had the chance to work through our lesson on writing formal letters, you'll have seen we examined the general differences between formal and informal language. If you haven't had the chance to do this lesson yet, I'd strongly recommend giving it a try because you'll pick up some very useful tips. We'll take a slightly different approach in this lesson. We'll try changing informal words and expressions or less advanced vocabulary that appear in a student answer and replace them with more formal or simply more advanced language. We'll base the lesson on this task that appeared in the previous video looking at organising reports. Here's the question again. You have just completed 6 months in a new job. In preparation for a progress meeting, you've been asked to write a report for your manager. Your report should explain what you feel you've achieved in the job so far, describe any problems you've had, and suggest any future training that would be suitable. One of the key things to notice here is who the report is for. That's your manager. Now, some people might have a very friendly relationship with their manager, and they might feel quite comfortable writing in an informal style. But as this is for an English exam, I think it's probably best to decide that this requires a semi-formal tone because you're writing to someone in authority in the company. Let's look at an example start to this report written by a student. So the report has a title, Progress Meeting Report, so that's good. The student then writes, "You asked me to write this report for the progress meeting we've got planned for the 11th of May. Okay, well, this is good natural English, but we can create a more formal tone by changing a few of these words and expressions. Before you move on to the next slide, think about how you would make this more formal. Pause the video now. Okay, here are 3 suggested changes listed on the right. Stop the video for a moment and try to work out how these suggestions could be used to rewrite the introduction. Let's have a look then, shall we? Instead of writing, "You asked me to write," the student could use "as requested." And we can replace "for the progress meeting" with "to support the progress meeting." For isn't informal, but to support is more advanced and a more formal way of saying this. And we can show off our breadth of vocabulary by adding scheduled, as in scheduled for the 11th of May. So we now have, as requested, I am writing this report to support the progress meeting scheduled for the 11th of May. Hopefully you can see how this has created a more formal tone, plus you'd get a higher grade for the variety of language used. Let's move on to the next section. Okay, another section heading, Achievement, so that's good. Let's see what the student has written. All in all, I think I've made a great start in my job. I've quickly fitted into the team and I've been working well with other people in the office. I've got a good idea of what I have to do within my department and the rest of the organisation. And judging by what I've heard from other people, I've managed to take over well from the person who did my job before, without any problems. Well, once again, if this was spoken language or an informal piece of writing, it would be excellent. But let's formalise it a little and earn ourselves some extra marks. Pause the video and try to do this yourself before moving on. Right, once again, there are some suggested alternatives listed on the right. Stop the video now and try to rewrite the text on the left using these words and expressions. Ready? Okay. Well, all in all is an informal way of saying in general. So that's an easy swap. And the same goes for I believe. Instead of I think, we could use positive instead of great. And we can use my new role instead of my job. So that gives us, in general, I believe I have made a positive start to my new role with the company. Effectively with my colleagues is a great way to impress the examiner and replaces well with other people in the office. We can replace got a good idea with gained a clear understanding. So I have gained a clear understanding. And let's change what I have to do with my responsibilities. So I have gained a clear understanding of my responsibilities. In this context, wider can replace the rest of, and judging by what I've heard from other people would be better as feedback from colleagues suggests. Finally, a smooth transition and the previous post holder is perfect if we're talking about taking over well from the person who did the job before. So we now have the following. Notice also how the contractions have been removed. Achievements. In general, I believe I have made a positive start to my new role with the company. I have quickly fitted into the team and have been working effectively with my colleagues. I have gained a clear understanding of my responsibilities within the department and the wider organisation. And feedback from colleagues suggests I have managed a smooth transition from the previous post holder. Here's the next section. Difficulties. In my job, I have to use Microsoft Excel a lot, as well as the MIS system used in the organisation. I think I'd be able to work better if I knew about all the different things the software can do. As well as that, I'm also the one that takes phone calls from members of the public, and sometimes I find it hard dealing with complaints. Okay, you know the ropes. Stop the video now and try and make this a little more formal. Here are some more suggestions. Again, stop the video and try using them to rewrite the text on the left. Finished? Okay, let's replace in my job I have to with my role requires. That's much better. It says I have to use Microsoft Excel a lot. Of course, you can use something a lot, but you can also make frequent use of it. As well as could be in addition, and I think becomes I feel. Remember, we used I believe earlier, so I feel is a good alternative and avoids repeating ourselves. In the context of work, more efficiently is better than well, and had a greater appreciation of replaces knew about. Let's change the different things the software can do with the potential this software offers. Additionally, replaces as well as that, responsible for instead of the one, occasionally instead of sometimes, and had difficulties rather than find it hard. So here's a more advanced and more formal version. My role requires that I make frequent use of Microsoft Excel as well as the MIS system used within the organisation. I feel I would be able to work more efficiently if I had a greater understanding of the potential this software offers. Additionally, I am responsible for taking phone calls from members of the public and have occasionally had difficulties dealing with complaints. Another section here heading Training Requirements, which is good. The student has written, "So because of these problems, I've talked to the Human Resources team about training. I know the company runs in-house workshops on using the MIS system. I think it would be good for me if I went on one. Maybe we could talk about whether I could make use of external courses in using Excel and customer service training during the progress meeting." Stop the video and decide which language items could be changed to make this more formal. Okay, so here we have the suggested language we could use again. Stop the video and think about how the paragraph could be rewritten using the items on the right. Okay, instead of "so because of these problems," we could simply write "bearing in mind these particular issues." "I've talked to" can become "I've spoken with," and "regarding" instead of "about." "I understand" would be a more formal choice than "I know," and joining the two sentences together with a relative pronoun, "which," would be a good idea, as would be good for me if I would benefit from attending. Perhaps is a more formal way of saying maybe, and of course discuss works better than talk about. There's nothing wrong with whether, but we can impress the examiner with something like the possibility of. And we now have this. Training requirements. Bearing in mind these particular issues, I have spoken with the Human Resources team regarding training. I understand the company runs in-house workshops on using the MIS system, which I think I would benefit from attending. Perhaps we could discuss the possibility of making use of external courses in using Excel and customer service training during the progress meeting. Finally, the conclusion to our report. Conclusion. I hope all this will help you get ready for the meeting. While we're waiting, I'll have a look around at what external training providers there are and give you more info if you need it. Okay, stop the video now and try to make this a little more formal. Okay, so here we have the suggested language we could use. Again, stop the video and think about how the paragraph could be rewritten using the items on the right. Let's start by changing all this for information. So I hope this information. Get ready for would be better as in preparation for. So I hope this information will help in preparation for. And in the meantime is more appropriate than while we're waiting. Research can replace the quite informal have a look, and the availability of external training providers can replace what external training providers there are. Let's change give you more info with provide further details. We won't use information as we used this earlier. And finally, we can impress the examiner with our ability to use inversion to create a formal register with should this be needed rather than if you need it. And so now we have conclusion. I hope this information will help in preparation for the meeting. In the meantime, I will research the availability of external training providers and provide further details should this be needed. And here's the full report written in an appropriate formal style. Well, that's the end of this video lesson. I hope you found it useful. In the next lesson, we'll examine a student's answer and have a go at proofreading it for errors. Before I finish, a quick plug for our CAE Exam Success Plus, a 13-week course for students preparing for CAE. And finally, one more plug. this time for our CAE Writing Critique and Correction Service. If you're studying on your own and don't have access to a teacher to give you help with your writing, this might be something you're interested in. Okay, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the 4th video in this series.